smile, which I feel like it's going to be really crap, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Might be kind of good for some reason, but it just looks like I've seen it before. It's just a triple dare and a smiley.
Welcome back, Space Explorers, to the Complete Guide to Horror podcast. Today, we're talking Event Horizon, the 1997 sci-fi horror film in which a crew of astronauts sent on a rescue mission after a missing spaceship, Let me redo that one. After a missing spaceship, the Event Horizon spontaneously appears in orbit around Neptune. Searching the ship for signs of life, they learned that the Event Horizon was a test bed for an experimental engine that created a rift in the space-time continuum and left our universe entirely, allowing a demonic force to possess it. Now, Coop, we'll start with you as this is your pick of the month. What are your overall thoughts?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily like one of my favorite movies of all time or anything like that, but I really enjoy this movie. I think I sort of came across it back in the olden days. You just flick the TV channel, and sometimes your experience of a movie was you've already missed the first 25 minutes, and then you just either rent it out or you just catch it on TV from the beginning again. But that was kind of my initial experience with that. I was like, what the fuck am I watching here? Why is Sam Neill evil? Why is that? What's that about? This isn't Jurassic Park. What the fuck? But yeah, I thought this is a really good movie, and having since watched it several times since from start to finish, I really enjoy it. There's a lot of I don't know if either of you have read much about it, but it sort of had some troubles along the way as far as getting released, being cut down and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just to sort of throw in a bit of trivia here to bore our listeners. So what's his name? Paul W.S. Anderson, who directed this movie, said that directors usually have a standard 10-week editing period to produce a film's first cut, as guaranteed by the Directors Guild of America. However, due to the short production schedule rapidly approaching release date and the fact that principal photography had not finished, Anderson agreed to a 6-week editing period and promised to deliver the film by August 1997, as Paramount wanted a hit film before Titanic's planned September release date. So I guess kind of overshadowed by the Titanic, as most films in 1997 were, I imagine. When the main unit wrapped, Anderson was supposed to start editing the film, but he had 2 weeks of shooting left with the second unit, shortening post-production to just 4 weeks, during which only a rough cut could be assembled. He noted that at 2 hours and 10 minutes, it was overly long, with weak direction and acting that could have been used, but isn't kind of completely reliant on bloody gadgets and made up science to sort of help it through. It does concentrate more on the terror aspect, how fucked up shit can get, and of course, just really horrifying imagery. One of the things that stands out for me in this movie is when they finally they get the last transmission and they unscramble it, and you see what they see when they get on the other side and essentially reach hell, or the dimension of pure chaos and all that kind of shit. People are tearing their eyes out and all that kind of shit, speaking in Latin, fucking horrifying imagery. And just to sort of meld that in a sci-fi setting of being completely trapped in the vacuum of space is, quite good. I thought this was a really good movie. And just another little thing as well. I'm not into it myself. Do either of you either are into or know what Warhammer 40,000 is?
Nope.
The PC game.
Yeah, I think they're games. I think there's books as well. I know someone, my mate Adam, shout out. He paints a lot of there's figurines and stuff, collectible shit, and people paint them and all that kind of stuff. Screenwriter Philip Eisner acknowledged that Warhammer 40,000 influenced the story. In the setting of Warhammer 40,000, spaceships travel the galaxy by passing through the warp, a parallel dimension where faster than light travel is possible, conceptually similar to hyperspace in Star Wars, but which is also inhabited by evil spirits that can infiltrate the ship and possess the crew if said ship isn't properly shielded. Fans consider Event Horizon to be an unofficial prequel to Warhammer 40,000 when humankind discover the warp and learn of its dangers the hard way. So Event Horizon, probably not an overly, it's like, I know it doesn't seem to be a movie that lots of people know. I know people here and there seem to know it, but it seems to be kind of melded in sort of the fandom of something like Warhammer as well. So yeah, interesting one. I really enjoy it overall, and yeah, interested to know what you guys think of this movie.
I enjoyed this movie. When I saw that it was sci-fi, I thought, is this going to go the realms of, you know, Jason X, where Jason Voorhees in outer space, or is it going to be more like, I don't know if anyone's heard of Dracula.3000. It was always at Video Easy in Nambucca, and the cover was like a weird parasitic Dracula for some reason. And that was completely stupid. It's marked as one of the worst movies of all time. And I thought, well, I've heard good things about this movie because surprisingly, this comes up quite often on Reddit, or Dreadit, the official horror Reddit subreddit. It's too many uses of the word Reddit. And I thought, I've always wanted to see this movie, but I've never actually, you know, downloaded it or watched it on Stan or Netflix. And so when I did watch it, I was like, oh, let's see how it goes. But I was quite impressed, especially with the hell sequences towards the end. It was a lot of in-your-face blood. I wouldn't necessarily say gore per se, but even just the whole build-up where, you know, Sam Neill turns completely psychotic, and then you see him with his eyes gouged out, and he says that line where it's like, where we're going, we don't need eyes to see. And for some reason, when he said that, all I could think of was that Lady Gaga song where she's like, I don't need eyes to see, I felt you touching. So I was like, oh, maybe this is where she got the inspiration from for that lyric. But no, really loved it. When I was researching as well for any bits of trivia, I came across the troubled production. There is talk that there is and there isn't, and then there is again, but a lost edit where it contains all the deleted scenes as per the rushed production of this film. So there was the discovery of a VHS tape that has all the original footage that they wanted to add in, but due to production constraints, they had to take out and whatnot. But it's been an ongoing thing for the past 25 years where they find the footage, but then they haven't watched it themselves, like the filmmakers. So don't know if that's actually going to come to light. But it's interesting to see that there was actually going to be more expansive scenes, particularly around the hell sequences, because we just see brief flashes where it's like the childish character or teen character like wrapped in the wire or whatever, covered in blood, and then there's a woman with like a stake through her chest area. And for me, it's one of the more like terrifying versions of hell. Usually if hell's in a horror movie, it's just all flames or it's all just like weird shit, whereas this is actually terrifying. And to me, it was a nice little contrast with the whole space cinematography where everything's quite dark and blue and a little bit of grey and rust, whereas this being all red and white, I was like, wow, that contrast really helps sell the idea that this is an entirely different dimension.
I really liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't really know what I was expecting. As with you two, I'm not really a fan of sci-fi horrors. I think they're a bit lame. I think the last sort of movie that sort of set like this was a movie called Apollo 13. Was it Apollo 13? It's like a horror one where they go on the moon, I think, and yeah, wasn't the best. No, but I really like this. Was kind of, I don't know if anyone would have seen Sam Neill being sort of the villain in the end, but I was kind of like, actually, I was like, oh, he's actually a baddie. I kind of was dumb at that point and realized I was like, oh shit. No, but I thought it was really good. I feel like it was kind of shot with the intention that it wanted to be 3D when it came out. because there was a lot of sequences with like bubble shots coming at the sort of the camera, or things flying at the camera, and then the scene would change. It kind of reminded me of like even like Jackass 3D, when the opening sequence is like flying dildos and all that stuff.
If I try to think of other sci-fi, or more specifically sci-fi horror movies around 1997, 1998, the only thing that really comes to mind is non-horror movies like Men in Black, or if you count Deep Impact as a sci-fi, but
Yeah,
it's not really sci-fi, that's more grounded. And when I say grounded, I mean just on planet Earth. I like that play on how, like, well, why don't they just fuck off and die, like George Clooney in that Gravity movie? But yeah, I will say I liked this movie in particular for how it builds up to the horrifying sequences at the end. Like, you have the calls from the previous crew where you listen into them describing it, so you're anticipating something already. And usually that's a bit of a sin in film world. Usually it's you show, you don't tell. But I felt that because they showed it at the end, where Laurence Fishburne's character has the visions and you see all the fucked up shit, you're like, whoa, I was not prepared for that. So I felt that it was really strong build up. It wasn't a slow burn. I think slow burns tend to, well, yes, it can be boring, but I also think sometimes it's just not done well. And for me, this had a clear structure. So it was, they arrive, they start noticing weird shit happening, then they're involved in it, and then they really get thrown into the mix of it all. So I really liked that. For me, I also liked the ending. I thought this might have been one where I was anticipating for like a horrible ending to be the big payoff, but you know, they allude to it where the character has the, what do you call it, like the, I guess, the dream sequence of seeing the evil person, Sam Neill, and realizes, oh no, they're actually fine. You know, it's a bit of a happy ending, but you're still left with the uncertainty that, you know, will these characters ever recover after what they experienced? So I like that it wasn't a typical happy ending. And just a note too, Ghost Ship, the 2002 film, copied the same ending. So in that movie, she's in the back of the paddy wagon and sees the same crew boarding Ghost Ship, or whatever that ship's called. And she's like, no, and they slam the doors on her. Whereas this one, it felt a lot more genuine.
Yeah.
It's like the writers at Ghost Ship were like, what's that space movie? Oh, Event Horizon. Yeah, that only made $46 million at the box office. Let's rip off that ending.
I feel like there's always sort of like this foreboding sense of like shit could get worse and worse at any moment. So I would say probably that overall tension is my favorite part, and just the utilization of gore of at least what we saw. Because apparently the initial test screenings, the lucky bastards that got to see what the movie was initially meant to be, was poorly received. And one of the main complaints was about the extreme gore. And funnily enough, Anderson and producer Jeremy Bolt claimed that some members of the test audience fainted. I don't know if that's true or just, you know, typical marketing of a horror movie, because we've seen that before. But that's an interesting idea that, as you mentioned, Justin, it is pretty, when there is gore in this, it doesn't really hold back. So to just think that some of those scenes could have been even worse is pretty interesting, I reckon.
The CGI in this is actually pretty decent. It still holds up quite well today. I was actually surprised. You've got the shot of Earth in the background. Doesn't look as good as, say, in something like Gravity or like a Neill movie. But I actually found like the sort of the ship sequence, even sort of the breakup sequences of the ship, like exploding, and that were actually quite well done, which for 97, I think it was, still actually remarkable. That actually looks pretty good, because a lot of these movies, these space movies, these older ones, can get really dated really quickly, unfortunately. And I mean, at the time it looked really good, but when you look now, it's horrible.
If I try to think of a least favorite part of this movie, surprisingly, even though I just said that I don't like sci-fi movies or sci-fi horror in general, the only thing I can say is maybe some of the flashes when it came to the Hell Vision sequence was a bit too fast for my liking, but that's a personal preference. That's not me critiquing the filmmaking in general or whatnot. I think, you know, we've already touched on the production issues. Maybe if it was just like a bit slower, or maybe just flashes of new footage, because I did catch they were flashing the same things 2 or 3 times in a row, and I was like, we get it. But that's my own thing. I don't know if maybe the extended sequence that was shown to the original test viewers, maybe it was better, maybe it wouldn't be better, maybe it would detract from the rest of the story, but that's a question I'll never have an answer for. But no, I can't fault this movie. This is something I'm going to be forcing my brother to watch with me as well. Just be like, hey, you would like this movie, whereas I never recommend a movie like Bodies, 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 so I'll just leave it at that. But Coop, did you have any least favorite parts of this movie?
What Byron was saying, I feel like they could have gone even further with the gore, and obviously that was an issue with why it was sort of cut back a little bit. But not other than that, not really. I feel like it's a good, well-paced sci-fi horror. So yeah.
There's a sequence with Laurence Fishburne and the younger lady, and there's a lot going on in that scene. I forget what it is. It's like everything's exploding, and there's dialogue obviously going over explosion sounds. And even I think I was just struggling to understand what's going on. And there's a lot of flashing at once. Even if that movie came out now, I wouldn't be surprised there's a warning at the start about strobe things or something like that, because there were a couple of scenes like that. No, nothing I can fault. As I said, like the CGI still holds up really well, so I can't really fault that at all. Like that's sort of something in this sort of movie being like 25 years old essentially would be a gripe, but yeah, they did a good job. And for someone that hasn't sort of seen this movie before, I was actually genuinely surprised for a 25-year-old sci-fi movie set in space. So
yeah. That sequence you were referring to before, when I watched it just reminded me of that. I'll always reference Family Guy for every single episode, but you know that scene where it's Brian and Stewie and they blow up the house, and it shows like 50 different camera angles of them leaving the house. I was saying earlier in this episode about how Event Horizon is quite prominent on Reddit. So if you post any question like, hey, has anyone seen Event Horizon? You'll get 1,000 comments on people saying, oh, I love this movie. Yeah, I watch it all the time. Or you'll have other people be like, oh, is this that movie with the tidal wave? And it's like, no, that was the... But then some people who passionately defend this movie. And likewise, there's other people who may have only just watched it because it was recommended on Reddit. And they'll come back and be like, oh, so I thought I accidentally watched a different movie of the same title that was released in 2009. And they'll go into a tangent about like, yeah, I don't remember anything about space in that movie. And it's like, watch the actual 1997 version. But no, I feel like this is one that's quite universally praised, even though it did get, I wouldn't say negative, just like mixed critical reception at the time of its release. But as we know, critics don't know shit. So I feel like this is quite a hidden gem. But if I try to think of like any previous trailers or posters, I don't know if I've heard of this movie before. Coop, you mentioned that you caught this movie once on TV. Was it something that like had remained with you, or had you seen posters or trailers before?
No, I had no idea until I saw it and like flicking channels. What's this? Check the TV guide. It was that long ago, so it would have been like 11 or 12. So like, oh, Event Horizon, okay, and just kept watching it and realized it was kind of like a horror movie or whatever. That's sort of where I was at with it. I didn't realize it was a horror movie until I sort of kept watching. So I don't remember really anything about the marketing or anything like that. I hadn't heard anything about it prior to seeing it. So
I asked a couple of people during the week, and they're like, yeah, no, we've seen it. And people younger and older than myself, like, well, us. So there is a fan base somewhere there. But yeah, no, it doesn't ring a bell. I didn't sort of think Sam Neill even did something like this. So like I said, I've only really known him from Jurassic Park. So that's really it with Sam Neill. So yeah.
There's rumors around, but actually no, I shouldn't say rumors because it was in articles and stuff. Let me rewind. So there's talks about a TV series adaptation. So they've gone through different directors. The latest one was Adam Wingard, who I believe directed Your Next, but no confirmation has been given. Not sure what the plot will be about, if it's a complete reimagining or if it's going to be a shot-for-shot remake. But given that it's a TV series, I wonder if it'll be like 6 episodes, 8 episodes, 13, 22. But would you both be interested in a TV adaptation of this movie?
Sure.
Yeah, well, just having a look at it now, it does say that Laurence Gordon's apparently on board to produce it.
Oh, nice.
Just there's Adam Wingard said to executive produce and possibly direct it. Laurence Gordon and Lloyd Levin, who produced the original film, are also involved. And this was in 2019, August 2019. This was reported, so it's now 3 years later. So I wonder if it's just dormant and it's gonna come back at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, think of how many productions sort of got cancelled after COVID happened. This could have been one that sort of just got left to the wayside. Who knows?
Yeah. But I think if they did a TV show, if it was 24 episodes, I don't think I'd invest time. I'd probably maybe go 8 or 10. And that would probably entice me and maybe sets up for a season 2 24 episode slot.
BP and Coop, thank you both very much for joining me again today.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Listeners, in our next episode, we discuss Nope, one of the most divisive entries of recent horror and directed by Jordan Peele. Subscribe, like, comment, tip, etc. And if you hated our episode...
Did you really think you could destroy this ship? She's defied space and time.